Okay guys, we've got a 2007 Jeep Wrangler. This got the 3.8 liter engine. So we're going to put a new injector in, and you may be amazed at actually how easy this is. I've seen a lot of people struggle with this. This is not that big of a deal. So I'm going to get the camera set up. The very first thing you want to do is prop your hood all the way back. It opens everything up, allows light to come in, and allows you to get over the engine a lot easier than if you've just got the if you're just using the prop rod. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and take the air cleaner box, and all that consists of is unclipping these clips. I'm going to take this connector off. I'm going to undo the 8mm worm clamp here. I'm just going to pull this box out of the way, lay it to the side, and then we'll get started with the rest of it. Okay guys, so I've got the air box out of the way. Basically, we're going to end up disconnecting this evap line, this PCV hose. I'm going to hit it right here with my pliers, see if I can swivel it out of the way. Disconnect this connector here for the map sensor. We'll end up disconnecting the fuel line. I'll go ahead and, if I can, yeah. This little safety clip, just clip it out of the way, set it to the side, and there's a special little tool that I'll use to pop that loose. The connector for the throttle body will disconnect. You do not have to disconnect the EGR tube down at the EGR valve. Don't mess with that. Those bolts are going to be rusted. There's a good chance you're going to snap them off and cause yourself a big headache. You do not have to do that, and I'll prove that to you here in a minute. There's a vacuum hose, it looks like, on the back side of the intake, and then there's a bunch of 10mm upper intake bolts that we're going to take out, and this upper intake is going to pop right off here without any problem. So that's basically the plan. Let me get the camera set up, and I'll get started. I'll get this up and off there. Yeah, that twisted around just perfect. That hose is already off. I'll go ahead and get the EGR tube. This EGR tube has enough flex to where you can pull it up enough to slide the intake out. There is a bolt back in the back right here that I'll take loose to give me a little bit more flex to it, but you do not have to take it loose down there at the actual valve. These stupid little safety tabs that Chrysler puts on that you can't never. There we go. Half the time they break. You can also pop that map sensor completely out of there if you wanted to. The connector right here at the throttle body. The top tabs already broke off of this one, it looks like. Be careful with it. You're supposed to have a tab like that on both sides. This one's broke on the top. Now once you get that off, there is a stud that dipstick out of the way that you've got to reach down there and get to. that allows this tube to be pulled up enough to where you can slide that intake right out of there without having to disconnect the bolts at the actual EGR valve. So the intake bolts are 10 millimeter. And I'm just going to crack them loose right now. Actually, they're not real tight, so one of the bolts fell all the way down. Now there should be one more back in the back. And I'm going to use a swivel for that one. And there's a vacuum line, but you should be able to just push it straight off there. And the intake is off. That's probably, what, 5 minutes? 5 or 10 minutes worth of work. And the injector that we're after is this one right here. So now to get the injectors out, all you got to do, hopefully this line's not in your way that much. There's 1, 2, 3, looks like 4 bolts. The connectors and 4 bolts. And that whole fuel rail will pull off there. I'm going to get some paper towels and stuff down in the intake ports. And then I'll turn the camera back on and we'll press on. Alright, so I've got a 3/8 fuel line tool. Pop that loose. This Jeep's been sitting all night, so I knew there wasn't going to be a whole lot of pressure. If you are working on a vehicle that just got finished running, put a rag around that because there might be some pressure, which might spray some gas on you. So now I'm just going to go along and I'm going to disconnect all the injectors. There's a little tab. You've got this red little latch that you've got to pop up. Once you get that popped up all the way, then you can push the lever, the release tab. So let me go along and get all these little puppies disconnected. You may have to unclip some of these. That looks like it's broke. 10 millimeter for the fuel rail. now, with a little bit of wiggling and jiggling and muscle power, you can pop this fuel rail completely up out of here. It's going to have fuel in it, so I'm just letting it drain. There's about $5 worth of fuel. And there you go. Now you got to do is, there's these little clips that hold these injectors in. This one actually just fell out. And that's what we're going to be replacing. It's this injector right here. Alright guys, so just to get these off, you got this little clip. I marked this one just to make sure that I don't get it mixed up with any of the other injectors. Once that clip's off, you can walk this injector out of here just like that. So I'm going to do that for the rest of these injectors. I'm going to clean all of them up. I've got a new injector to replace this one. This was an aftermarket. I think it was a standard. I can't remember. But anyway, I suspect that it's not doing it. It's quite a good a job as it should compared to the others. Anyway, I'm going to get all this stuff cleaned up, get the new injectors. I'll show you putting those back together. Make sure that you get all your O-rings out of... In fact, that one's broke. Look at that. Not sure if that would actually be causing the problem. The rubber O-ring should have sealed that off, but you can see that this injector is actually broke right here. Yeah, anyway. Let me get these cleaned up, and I'll get them put back in. I'll show you the last one I'm putting in. I'll show you putting that one in. And then we'll start going back together with it. Alright guys, I'm going to do my best to kind of show you how these injectors fit up in here. And what I'm doing is I'm just lubing them up with some oil. Just some generic oil just to help them slide into the cavity. So here's the injector, here's the hole. If you kind of rock them in there, they'll go real easy. And make sure that the injector connector is facing this way. The reason is because these slots on these factory injectors, the grooves that this clip fits in, they're only on the sides. So you can't really put this clip on with the injector turned wrong. So turn the injector like that, and then just kind of finagle that clip right in there. You want to kind of rock it back and forth to make sure that the tabs on both sides are engaged and that it's engaged into the injector. And whenever I get up there to get ready to put it into the intake, I'm going to make sure that these O-rings are lubed up with some oil. And also, if you want to know the part number to these O-rings, this is the standard brand, and the part number is SK133. And it comes with all the O-rings for the injectors. Anyway, we're ready to drop this down into the intake. Obviously, the first thing you want to do is clean the cavities out. I blew them out with air already. I'm going to get a rag, a cotton rag, not paper towel, because I'm afraid that if the paper towel tore, I don't want it going down into the engine. So I'm going to get a cotton rag. I'm just going to wet it with some brake cleaner or whatever you've got, it's fine, alcohol, and I'm going to scrub those cavities out. And then next time I turn the camera on, it'll be set up on the car, and we'll be ready to drop these down into the engine and finish this project up. Alright, we're getting ready to install the injector and the fuel rail. I'm just going to shoot just a little bit of oil in each one of these holes. And on the actual O-rings, tighten themselves. And that's all there is to that. You can kind of twist those injectors back and forth just a little bit to make sure that they're seated all the way down in there. Now it's just a matter of going in reverse order, hooking everything back up. Whenever you put the injector connectors on, you should hear them snap, and you want to tug on them to make sure that they don't pop off there. Push your little red locking tab down. Alright, so I do have new intake gaskets for up here. I'm probably not going to film the rest of this because you saw it coming apart. You should be able to see it going back, or you should be able to get it put back together. I'm going to wait to hook the fuel line up, just that way I can move it out of the way to slide the intake in here a little bit easier. Fuel line just hooks up, you just snap it on. Pull on it, make sure it doesn't come off, and then should be good to go. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Like I say, this flexes up enough to where you don't have to obviously disconnect it down there at the EGR valve. Whenever I get it all put together, I will turn the camera back on and we'll start it up, see how she does. Okay guys, it's all back together except for the air box. Don't forget your vacuum line right here. You got a bolt back there in the corner, and again, you can take that off right there, take these two bolts off here, and you can pull this EGR tube up enough to where you can slide that intake out. You do not have to take the bolts loose down there at the EGR valve itself. Make sure your connector's hooked up to your map sensor. Put your PVC hose back on, your clamp. Make sure your fuel line snaps on. Pull on it to make sure you can't pull it off, and then reattach your little safety catch there. Of course, your evap line. And other than putting the airbox back on, this is done. This was probably about a 35-minute job, maybe 40-minute if I wouldn't have been filming. Yeah, very simple to do. But I'm going to throw this air box on, and then we're going to start it up. Alright guys, I've already had it running. Starts and runs great. I went ahead and reset the codes, and just for the heck of it, I did a throttle body relearn. But it seems to be running great. It's idling better. It's super smooth. It seems like before the idle was just a little bit on the rough side. As soon as you brought it up off idle, it smoothed out. You never did feel a miss. Even at idle, you didn't really feel a misfire. You kind of felt maybe a little bit of a roughness, but it didn't feel like a misfire. Anyway, injectors changed. Before I put this video up, I'm going to drive this for a couple weeks, and within 3 days, that check engine light would come on and it'd have a 303 fault set. So whenever to set the misfire counters, not misfire counters, the throttle plate, I just used the Launch CRP 919 EBT. This has turned into my favorite scan tool. I use this more now than I use my D8 BT, and I haven't used my Autel in a couple years. I've been using these Launches and X-Tools, just to see if they actually will work just as good as the Autel. Couple little hiccups with the X-Tool, but they got it taken care of pretty quick. Have not had any hiccups yet with the Launch, so it's been pretty rock solid. Anyway, we're done. This is a 2007 Jeep Wrangler with a 3.8 liter. Had a misfire on cylinder number 3. That misfire is now gone. So I'm going to drive it for a few days, make sure that that takes care of it, and I will definitely put that on the end of this video. You guys take care.